Welcome to the Idea Climbing Podcast. Today, I'm discussing how entrepreneurs can build a stronger brand online with my guest, Shon Christy. Shon brings over 20 years of marketing expertise as the founder of Shon Christy Social Media, Fractional Social Pro, and Neurosocial Labs. He's worked with over 800 companies internationally, pioneering innovative social media marketing and engagement approaches. We dive into topics such as how to keep key people's attention once you get it, how to move along the know, like, and trust continuum faster, how to build a standout reputation and successful business without being salesy, and more golden nuggets of advice. You're going to love this show. Welcome again to the Idea Climbing Podcast. Shon, thank you for making the time to be here. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Looking forward to the conversation.
We're going to talk about how to build a strong online presence, which is different than just traditional marketing. But before we get into strategies, I'd love to know, when it comes to building a powerful, strong presence online, how did you get into it to the point where you're teaching it and doing it for clients? I mean, what's your story there?
So I got into social media at the very beginning, just as a basic user. When it really started to hit the scene on the college campuses, I was doing my master's at the University of Akron when all of it came out. And so I was in the right place at the right time. And then launched my social media company. We were the first niche social media marketing agency in the state of Ohio. And so I had to build this brick by brick just by doing and trying new things. And one of the things as I was building my own personal brand and going out there and making myself the leader in social media by speaking and doing different things, I was building that online presence to promote that I was that person. And when I looked back over a couple of years of doing this to try to figure out, why some things worked and why some things didn't, I got stuck on this quote from Pete Cashmore, founder of Mashable, that talked about attention being the new currency. And that really hit me. And when you think about how we're getting bombarded with marketing, and more so every single day, you've got TV shows, radio shows, certainly social media. You've got, texts from TGI Fridays because you wanted the free appetizer the night before, and they're now marketing to you all the time. You got the Goodyear blimp here in Akron flying overhead. You've got trucks with logos. You can't even, get on the turnpike without Progressive having Flow telling you to slow down for savings. And so you're getting bombarded with advertising. And so our minds are filtering and rejecting information all the time. We don't even know that we're doing it because we're so bombarded. And so it's really important for you to stand out. And so that's really what I started to do, looking at my campaigns, looking at things that I've done. Why did they work? Why did they not? And then dissecting that. And actually came up with some principles for me that I use to grab attention. Because if you don't have somebody's attention in the first place, and oh, by the way, we all have the attention of a goldfish, right? Or less than. And so it's really important to do that. And so I've tried to come up with conceptually, how do we do this so it's not the same thing all the time? You can grab attention differently.
So when you realized you had to start building that brand, that online presence, where did you start? What did you start by doing? I mean, you go from, let's just say, not having a strong one, maybe not any, because we all have a background, most of us, in some kind of social, but consciously realizing, wow, I do have to, be a brand or be a presence. Where did you start?
Well, I think it's all individual, right? And so I started with, who am I? Like really thinking about who I am, because all social media is the great digital amplifier, right? And so I needed to understand who I was to then use the megaphone of social media to broadcast that. And I think it's just taking an authentic look at yourself. And I liken a personal brand to like a recipe. We talk about the concept of secret sauce. And, if your grandma made pasta and she had this great sauce, like she had these ingredients and certain amounts that she put in to make it taste that way. And oh, by the way, everybody doesn't always like the same thing you like. And so I think just understanding what that taste palette is for you, understanding the ingredients of a personal brand. So I recommend multiple things. Because if I tell you, I grew up as a wrestler, wrestling's my favorite sport, and you never wrestled, and maybe you played basketball and you actually hated the wrestlers, that's not going to make you connect with me. But maybe if I talk about, a favorite sports team, like the Cleveland Browns, you happen to love them, and you're like, oh, but I love the Browns, and that's really cool. And we can start talking about that. And so having multiple connection points for another individual, I think is really important, and to do that, because they might not like 5 of the 6 things, but if you find that one thing you can connect with somebody on a human level, that will grab attention. I call that, that's part of my alignment concept in my principles. If you have some kind of alignment, it might be faith-based, whatever it is, or political party, whatever it might be, you're just finding a way to connect with somebody, because automatically, if you've got some alignment with them, they're going to like you a little bit more. And so we do business and we hire people we know, like, and trust. And so getting somebody to like you through that branding is one of the steps.
So do you have pre-planned talking points, or do you ask questions? How do you initially get their attention?
Well, so I think I think about who am I? Like, where are my strengths? What am I passionate about? Where do I add value in the lives of people? And so for me, like, it's really easy. Like, you're a podcast host, you're an interviewer. That's part of who you are. You're an author. And so, like, I'm writing my first book, and I might have some things like, hey, I'd really like to know, how you did this. So if you were talking about the process of writing a book, where did you struggle? How did you overcome those struggles? You would automatically have my attention with that. And so I think it's, who are you? How can you use that information to add value? So part of mine will be what I do. Like, you're a podcast host, I'm a social media guy. How can I talk about concepts that will benefit somebody as a salesperson or as a marketer? It might be something to do, in my philanthropic endeavors or leadership. Here's a group that I'm leading, and here's a challenge that we attacked, and here are the steps that we took to overcome that challenge. People, although they might not have the same challenges, they can unearth some value from that will help them on their journey. So the goal for me really is can I eliminate roadblocks for people, or can I help them take one step towards their, goal, their dream?
So once you get their attention, which is difficult, I love what you said, because I can see you being able to grab attention. How do you keep their attention after you get it initially?
So how do you know that you have their attention, right? So number one is, they view your content. Number two is they're engaging with you. So I think an authentic conversation, I think this is where people miss things a lot. We're putting content out because we want to drive eyeballs and we want to drive views. But I think in authentic dialogue, social media is social media because of the two-way interaction. This is not a TV broadcasting information, right? We have one mouth and two ears for a reason, they say. And so, like, really not only talking and adding value in the lives of people, but authentic interactions with them, not just, hey, thank you. Hey, do you have a similar story? Would love to hear more about you. That's one of the things that you talk about, is unearthing people's stories and helping amplify their stories. So you're in a great seat to do some of that. But I think keeping it is engaging with them, sharing their stuff, celebrating their victories, going back to their content and jumping in and having a similar conversation in their feeds, because we know how hard it is to get people to interact with us in a social media feed. It's harder now than it's ever been. And so if you reciprocate with that engagement, both on your page and on their page, over time, and having authentic conversations. Hey, saw this, I know you were talking about this. I saw this blog post and wanted to share it with you. Or, what, hey, my friend Mark, I think, he'd add a lot of value. You might want to check that out. I'm going to, send a virtual connection on LinkedIn so you two can have a conversation, just two good people meeting each other that I think would add value to each other's lives. No, promises or expectations, just two good people meeting, see what happens.
So once you get their attention, you're keeping it. I think that, tell me if I'm on point, I think that's when worrying's the wrong word, but thinking about your reputation comes in. How do you start building a reputation and not just have a bunch of people's attention?
Yeah. So know, like, and trust, right? They need to know what I do as a social media marketer. They need to know that this is what I'm about. They need to know my personal brand. And if my personal brand is in alignment with their belief system, then they're probably going to like me. And then consistency, showing up as who you say you are, day to day, week to week, month to month, year to year. You show up like that, you become synonymous with all the things that you've just said your personal brand was, because you're delivering that not only in your content, but with your actions, because we all know actions speak louder than words. Mm-hmm. So if I say, that I'm heavily involved in leadership, I better be doing things in my company, in my community, in my family that showcase that. And so I'm reinforcing my brand with actions and with words and showcasing. And that might be, successes. It might be failures too. Like, hey guys, like, this was a real challenge for me. I just saw somebody right before we got on this call. I was just scrolling through LinkedIn and somebody was who I know, who's a coach and does a great job and has been in business for a long time, was kind of sharing a major failure that he had. And it was very raw and, very emotional, and the look on his face in the post. And that look is what made me stop the scroll. Like, hey, that's uncharacteristic. And then he went in and kind of talked about the challenge, that he's facing. and what he's doing to overcome it, and just like, hey, would appreciate, your thoughts and prayers, as I'm going through this, and like just complete authenticity. Because a lot of times, social media is kind of the highlight reel, right? But every
Yep.
human has challenges. And so like, it was just kind of, you saw this kind of support, it got attention. It was authentic. And I'm sure it's keeping attention, and people are reaching out, like sending a text like, hey man, thinking about you, hang in there. And so I think it's all those things: know, like, trust. You build it by doing what you say you're going to do, and showing up every day, week to week, month to month as that person.
So how do you build and balance personal reputation, professional reputation? Do they intertwine at some point? Do you separate them? What do you think about that online? Because different social media outlets are used for different things, but how do you either separate them, combine them, mash them together? What do you think about personal reputation and professional reputation?
I think they're intertwined. So social media, again, is social. And I always talk about, use it and leverage it how you're comfortable, because it doesn't matter what I say or what you say. It matters how you feel about it and your approach to it. Because if it doesn't feel right to you, you're not going to execute well. It's going to be choppy. It's not going to be you. But once you understand what it is and how you want to come at it, then you execute at that level. And I think they're completely intertwined. I'm not a different human. I don't lose my professional identity when I come home, and I don't lose my personal when I go to work. And so I think I bring all of that together. And my personal belief is that they're intertwined, they're one thing, and you can talk about both. And so some people might be, LinkedIn, that's not a place where you should talk about, that personal challenge. But I think it's the opposite of that. Somebody, and it's not me, somebody said it a long time ago, it's not B2B, it's not B2C, it's H to H, meaning human to human. Right. And so we're not, I'm not just a social media guy. Like, I have human feelings as well. Just like the buyers from a B2C or B2B product. Yes, we know and understand what that is. But the human psychology and human behavior around buying is very similar. It's just a different cycle that they have to go through. If you're building a nuclear power plant versus buying a t-shirt, those are different buying processes, and there's a different buyer journey. But the way that people make buying decisions are pretty similar when you really break them down, psychologically speaking. So I think just approaching people on a human level is really important. At least that's my approach, and what I've seen work for me. That's what I recommend with personal branding as well.
So I guess both personal and professional, but more so towards professional reputation, whether it's an automated bot or some gurus will actually teach it, as far as you hit them up with, hey, I'd like to connect on LinkedIn. You look interesting. Boom, I want to 10X your business. Like, what?
Yes.
Pump the brakes, bump. How do you build a reputation as a successful business person? Even if you're up and coming, everyone starts somewhere. How do you build a reputation and build a business without being salesy?
I think it's adding value. And so we talked a little bit pre-podcast about Bob Berg and his book, The Go-Giver. And so I think, that really changed the game, because I've sold things my entire life. Since I was 16, I've sold things. And I feel like the majority of that, or at least the first half of that, I sold incorrectly. What I learned after reading that book is it all works itself out. If I go and add value to every human's life in some way, shape, or form that I come in contact with, and every contact has value. And if I help people, that always comes back. It's golden rule. But Bob Berg's story really talks about just going out and helping people excel, and teeing up deals for them, making strategic introductions for them that move the needle for them. That's how I built my business. And the first year, nobody even understood social media. I was so early, there were no business pages back then. And so people were making business pages as personal pages, and Facebook was still figuring out its revenue model, and it was really just to keep people connected, but it changed the way we communicate. And so I just went out, like, nobody was buying what I was selling. I made no money my first year. I thought it might have been the worst mistake of my life, because I went all in, took my savings and 401k, and said, I think this is something. And in that first year, 2010 was abysmal. Nobody saw it. They just didn't think that there was a place for it. And so I struggled. And all I did was, hey, nobody's buying. I'm not executing my service. So I might just go, I read the book. I'm like, I'm just going to go help people. And that's all I did. And what happened was, the next year, people go, hey, I'd have somebody call me. Hey, my sister-in-law just started this company, and she was talking about social media. And I don't remember exactly what you do, but I remembered it was social media, and she mentioned it. Could you help? And then that referral train it was an avalanche, the snowball at the top of the hill just going down and then collecting, boom, blew up, and then sold a company, started a new one, boom, blew that up, sold that company. Now started my third iteration of that. But it's all been network referral, me having conversations online, my clients talking about me. You look at, professional reputation. I think when we say how good we are, it's marketing, right? Oh, you expect me to say the best. I'm not going to tell you that I'm very average. I'm going to follow up half the time. You're going to be mad because you're not getting any reporting. I'm not going to say that to you. I'm going to say I'm the best thing that ever happened. And that's marketing. We all do that. But when your clients and your customers show up and say it, that's the truth. And I think, when you look at endorsements and recommendations on LinkedIn as an example, that's the strongest case for support on, why you or why me. People are saying it that say, hey, I've worked with Shon. He does a great job. Here's what I loved about working with them. Boom, you see that they're putting it out there for the world to see. So that's also that third party verification is backing up that reputational component you're talking about.
So once you build a reputation, because it can be easy, especially with social, to be a blip on the radar. Once you build it up, get the things going that you're saying, you have some testimonials, endorsements, things like that. How do you maintain that over time? Because I've seen so many experts, they're like, boom, they're everywhere. 3 months later, it's like, where the heck did she go? How do you maintain a reputation once you build one?
I think multifaceted approach is part of the answer to that. So when I get under the hood and I start looking at this stuff, a lot of times what we'll see is people are a one-trick pony and they show up the same way all the time. And what happens in that filter and reject we talked about with our attention is, it looks like content fatigue. They see the same thing, it looks the same. So the mind already thinks that they've seen it. They've moved on, they're on to the next thing because you show up with the same brand standards, the same quotes, the same look, the same shirt. And so it's not sticking out to them. And so for me, when I look about what are new platforms that I could use? What are new ways of deploying it? Instead of just static posts, maybe I'm doing white papers, maybe I'm doing Instagram reel, maybe I'm going to do a podcast, maybe I'm doing long form video. So showing up on different platforms, different ways, and trying to, get as much juice, out of the lemon that you can. So if we're doing a podcast, you're going to do the long form podcast. You're probably going to transcribe it. So you've got some content that could be SEO friendly for me or for you. And then you're probably going to, cut it up into shorts. So you can do some Instagram reels, YouTube shorts, things like that, because everybody's using social media differently. And so if you're showing up with similar content in 3 different ways, you really made 1 + 1 = 3 instead of 2. And so just maximizing, getting that content extension, showing up in different ways at different times, and being really thoughtful about it when you look at it over a 30-day period, that you're spreading out the different content types. So you're breaking it up and always tricking the mind into thinking that it's seeing something new, something for the first time, so that you get that attention that you deserve. The content could be great, but you got to get the mind, the eye to pick it up first.
So once you hit that level and you're maintaining it, you're doing things a little bit differently. Is there a level where you just hit a plateau and that's it? Or how do you know when to take the next step? Okay, I'm here and I have a good reputation. Let's just say this isn't damage control. I'm here. When do you know to go to here so you don't just hit a plateau and stay stagnant?
So I'm a fan of Stoicism. There was a book that I read called The Obstacle is the Way. And it talks about when you start hitting that door and you can't get past, you have to, this is the opportunity for innovation. And so in my universe, I'm definitely there. So I've been doing this for 15 years. We've got AI, ChatGPT and DALL-E and all of these different platforms that will help you optimize the speed or efficiency of social media content creation. That really hurts my core business, right? And so, we looked at 2 different ways. Okay, knowing that this is here, how do we stay, because I consider myself a marketing futurist, and how do you take things to the next level all the time? So I'm always looking through that lens. And so we decided to do 2 things. In 2022, we said, okay, what if agency work, content creation through agency, isn't something people want to do anymore, which is a real possibility with the tools out there. And most people have people internally that do this. And even if they don't, they probably don't want to pay an agency rate. So they're figuring out, how do we do this faster and less expensively? And so we said, okay, we'll get into a leased employee model where it's less than an agency rate, but you can basically buy an employee from us or lease an employee from us for 10 hours a month. They're top tier trained in social media strategy, execution, and AI. And you can get them to do that. And for 10 hours a month, where you might be paying somebody 20 hours a week, we think our people are faster, smarter, stronger, and we think that we can save you money and do better. So that there's that. And then most recently, we piloted early this summer in May. We trademarked neurosocial and neurosocial labs. So getting behind the mind of somebody that is consuming social media content, we want to be experts in that. Because even if computers and programs create all content, humans are still the consumer of the social media content. And so if we can be on that side of the equation, we'll have customers forever, because it's social media optimization. And don't do this, do this. Here's why you should do this. This is what the neuroscience, behavioral science says. And we can put people in front of a computer, do eye tracking with them, do neural nets, emotional tracking, biometrics, pulse rate, body heat scans, and we can tell you how people are reacting to your content based on all of those things. And we haven't found somebody that's doing exactly what we're doing, and we're pretty excited about it. It's a collaboration with the University of Akron, but we were able to clearly see, some real differences in content consumption from the same people in the target market, looking at three different things, three very different ways. And so we can say, based on all the data gathered, that this one is going to be your home run, because here's what happened with your target market when they saw it. Here's how much time they spent on it. Here's how they felt about it. And we can use biometrics to tell us that data. And then we can also do some focus group and interviewing on the back end if we want to dig deeper with it. So I'm pretty excited about that.
So briefly, what would you say as far as once you get there, you build a reputation, you know how not to plateau? What would you say is the most important advice for keeping a reputation for the long run? What advice would you have for people to do that for the long run?
One word: consistency. People give up if they don't see, if I hear it all the time from sales teams that want to use this for prospecting. Yeah, well, I spent an hour and I didn't get any clients out of it. Well, I liken it to going to the gym. Number one, if you don't know what you're doing when you go into the gym, you probably should have a coach or somebody to tell you what to do. So you skip to the front of the line and you're not messing around. So have a plan, have a coach to show you. And then once you know what to do, you got to go in and be consistent. You don't lose all the weight the first, the second, the third time. But if you did it 3 days a week, every week for 12 months, I guarantee you're going to see the results. And so I think people give up too early because they think that the results are automatically going to happen. But if they're not, they don't understand attention. They're not getting it. They're not going to see that result. And they may say, hey, I spent 10 hours and I got nothing. Well, did you spend 10 hours doing the right thing? Because if you didn't, then you're not going to get any result. The input impacts the output. And so you have to have all the things working together and use the plan that's going to get you that result. It's not that social media doesn't work. It's either you didn't work or your plan didn't work. But we all know that people spend time there. It's the #1 ad spend on the planet today. Yeah. So clearly there's a reason for that. You're just not doing something right.
We have covered a lot of ground in a short period of time. If someone listening or watching right now, they're digging everything we're talking about and everything you're saying, I know I definitely am. And they say, okay, you know what? I haven't been consciously building a brand. I haven't been consciously building a reputation online. If you were to say, look at whether it's reinforcing something you've already said or something different, if you're to say, you know what, if you're going to start doing this the right way, at least do this one thing, at least this one thing above all, what would you say to do?
Have a plan. That's it. Have a strategy, right? So begin with the end in mind, have a roadmap. What I find is even with large corporations, they don't have an actual social media marketing plan. And so if they don't have a plan, if a Fortune 500 company doesn't have a written plan, I doubt that the average human is sitting there with an attack plan. So have a plan, know what you're going to do, execute on the plan, and evaluate if it's working. And if it's not working, change it up.
Excellent. This has been awesome. And Shon, if people want to find you online, where's the best place or places to go?
Sure. LinkedIn is my favorite spot. We talked a lot about that today. And my website, my name is Shon, S-H-O-N, last name Christy, C-H-R-I-S-T-Y. So you won't find very many S-H-O-Ns out there in the universe. So find me on LinkedIn or on my website. Would love to chat with you.
Thank you again, Shon. This has been awesome.
Yeah, thanks so much.
And scene.